And we are back with an all-new episode of Keep It. We're not yet in Trump's America, but last week's episode, I got a lot of beautiful DMs, by the way, and just comments in person from people that I ran into, friends and strangers, who were actually very happy that we recorded our episode as we usually do on Tuesday, and it came out Wednesday, and people were like, it was so pleasant to listen to your episode and like hear you two still living in a world where there was hope, where you believed that Kamala Harris had won. Anyway, I'm Ira Madison III. Welcome back to Keep It.
I'm Louis Vertel, and can you take us back there? I was loving it. Tuesday Land, let's go.
We were really like, hey, you know, the election's going to take a long time. We'll find out the results later, thinking that it's still COVID and everybody's mailing in shit. Right. I had a friend visiting. Our friend Joaquin Ferrer was in town.
Atlanta zone, yes.
Yeah, he came in town to see some shows, and he was like, hoping that it would be just like last time on Saturday, there'd be a celebration in New York, and instead, just depressed at Sunset Boulevard. So,
yes. Right.
For many reasons, which we'll get into later, I want to welcome our guest this week, the fantastic Sam Sanders. You're a return guest, and I also have to say, every time you come here, you got a new show.
Girl, I'm trying to send my two children through school, and by two children, I mean my two pit bulls. They're expensive. I gotta stay employed. Having jobs like a Jamaican, girl. I'm working.
Well, this new one is the Sam Sanders Show, which is on KCRW. Tell us about, conceiving this show and what led to it.
Yeah, so I've been covering all kinds of things for a long time. Breaking news, politics, culture, race, music, entertainment. And I wanted this show to really just be about, like, the fun shit that we're doing in our free time. The TV I like, the movies I like, the books I like, and the creatives who make it, and kind of getting into what makes them tick. So, for instance, we had Sashir Zameda on the show talking about how the queerness of her characters on screen kind of foreshadowed her own coming out. I had Brian Jordan Alvarez talk about English Teacher on FX and making the move from short form social media to like a full blown show. Joel Kim Booster was on talking about how fame just changes you. And so it's a lot of pop culture, but a lot of also talking with creatives about what it means to be a creative. So I love it. And this show, as a special bonus, it's on YouTube as well. We got a whole set in a studio, and these guests come in person, and it adds a whole new layer of fun. I really like it. So that show drops episodes every Friday on YouTube and in podcast feeds. And then you can also hear it on the radio if you're in LA on KCRW. And then, of course, I still host my show, Vibe Check, with my dear girlies, Zach Stafford and Saeed Jones. So, yeah, I'm busy. Check me in the podcasts Wednesdays and Fridays. Twice a week, double the fun. Be sure to tip.
I mean, what we're really doing here is inviting competition onto the show. And I don't know if it's in keeping your enemies close thing or whatever, but just know that I'm not intimidated and I won't be cowed.
Y'all are the blueprint, the original DNA. Listen, I remember for years I've been a fan and listening, but there was a point in my life where I was making the long road trip from LA to San Antonio, Texas, like several times a year. And y'all got me through Arizona more times than you know. Jesus. So thank you for your service.
Oh God! I mean, maybe put that on my tombstone. We got somebody through Arizona.
You got us through Arizona. Yeah.
Maybe Kamala should have been listening.
Yeah.
Hey, yo, listen. Can I tell you, my dumbass was like, this election's going to take a while. I should just distract myself election night. I'm going to go to the movies with a friend. Guess what we went to go see on election night?
Conclave?
Smile 2.
Oh.
Bad vibes for an election night. Bad vibes.
Very Kamala vibes, though, like the smiling, the laughing, the ish ball of it all.
I also like how after the election, she lost. And then the next picture we got of her was playing Connect 4. And my brain went to, her brain has deteriorated so much from this experience that she is reduced to Milton Bradley games with plastic pieces.
And
But apparently she
easiest
was
of
just
the
playing
board
with her
games.
nieces.
Yeah.
In this post-election haze, it's interesting to be back in New York where I was after the 2016 election. But I don't know how it feels for you two. Obviously, there's a lot of work to do, et cetera. And people will be talking about that ad nauseum. They're also constantly talking about what went wrong on every side because everyone loves to, pull up their sports analysis,
And pretend like it was so
whiteboard.
obvious in retrospect.
Right,
Yeah,
and I don't know, how does this one feel for you two? Because I mean, honestly, there was the sadness that set in, but then also I did this shit in 2016, I'm not here ready to hear about the what went wrong 24/7, and then I'm also not about to jump into resistance slam poetry responding to
God.
Trump or whatever. We've responded
Jill
enough.
Scott Heron, get back at the mic. Yeah.
I mean, I guess for me, it's two big things. A lot of my liberal friends online are fully death spiraling. And I'm just y'all do know he hasn't taken office yet. Pace yourself. It's going to be 4 years and it hasn't even begun. So I kind of remind people around me, it's going to be a marathon, not a race. We have the toolkit. We know what to do, but you can't spin yourself out now. Right. So that's the first thing. And when I see people spiraling online, I'm just pace yourself, pace yourself, pace yourself. Second thing is just the only postmortem we need to have about this entire election is Joe Biden. America knew that they didn't like Joe Biden for at least a good year. Democrats saw the polls and they said, oh, no, it's cool. We'll give him all things Joe Biden, but just with that pretty lady. It'll be fine. The fact that Kamala wasn't allowed to make a clean break from Joe Biden is the reason she lost. That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to do any more hand-wringing than that. This was a situation where inflation was high, Americans were mad, they blamed Joe Biden for it, and everyone knew that, and the polls showed it. And I think Democrats thought that Kamala Harris could distance herself from Joe Biden by just not being Joe Biden, but more was necessary. And whether she wasn't allowed to or didn't choose to make a cleaner break, I think that was it. And it's not rocket science here. The polls were clear for a very long time.
Also, this might be a cynical response on my part, but I feel like part of the hand-wringing is talking about what kind of messaging didn't get through. And then I always think, but 92% of black women still voted for Kamala Harris, so some messaging got to somebody. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's there's the largest, white men still want to believe Trump. I mean, it's a pull. It's a charisma bot thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's also this thing where it's this was the first election where the right actually won media. For 20 years, the right has said the left controls media, the left controls Hollywood and the elites. But the right has secretly built this media manosphere, alt-right tech sphere, where every space that we think is dominant, there's an alternative right-wing space to answer to it. And they won that. And they won podcasts. And they won YouTube. And that's how they won. And I think liberals at this point are 10 years behind where they should be when it comes to new media. And this idea that doing 60 Minutes and the New York Times and this and that is enough, no longer, no more. Everyone was running around being Kamala is brat, she's going to win. Not even knowing the podcasts that Trump went on that had 10 million young male white viewers. That's where it's at, right?
First of all, Kamala is brat. Okay, let's talk about brat sales in general. Okay, we should have had Tree Payne working on the campaign. Okay,
come on.
Yeah. Where's Kamala's Eras tour? Okay, let's do that.
I think liberals don't realize how much of the things that they thought were cool and dominant were actually niche. Charlie XCX calls herself niche, and to think that that's going to win you an election. No, it's the biggest pop stars of our day are Morgan Wallen and Post Malone. So even in that regard, the left doesn't see things clearly. They're still sitting here thinking that if we just get Lin-Manuel Miranda back doing the right song, it's so dated. And I never thought that I would say that about the Democrats and the left, because we've been told for decades that they run the media, not this new media. Yeah. They don't.
Yeah, not too much on my King Lin-Manuel, though. He did blurb my book.
We love.
Okay, he loves my book, and I love him.
He did deserve the Oscar for the Moana song too. I have to say he should be an EGOT winner. I have to say.
I agree.
Honestly, seems like a nice guy. Anyway,
no, he's great. And I also want to say, as people are relitigating 2016 too, and talking about some of the corny stuff that we've done that we don't want to repeat. This is an early keep it. I like the people who want to jump online and suddenly all of a sudden pretend just because they hate the way that Hamilton got mixed in with, resistance, social media, etc. We're not going to pretend that Hamilton is bad. Okay. Like there are people who like to jump up and be like, right. But there are people who like to jump up and be like, so when are we going to admit now that like Hamilton wasn't a good musical? It was. Also, it's a good musical.
It's one of those things where I just need everybody who's my age exactly to take the word cringe out of their vocabulary.
Yes.
Now what do you think of it? You know what I mean? It's like, that's not a point of view. You just saying I'm better than this thing and I get to act embarrassed about it is not, instructive. Yeah. It's not, you're not saying anything.
You know who has no shame and is not cringe? Like the fucking right. Okay?
No kidding. There's no such thing as cringe.
Winning. Yes. They just do it.
Every time you post a thing where it's like Ben Shapiro embarrassed by, like whatever 25 blue-haired college students that you get to go and tap buzzers. I keep seeing those videos online and I want them to go away. But,
I know, and they're structured like a game show, which is so offensive to me. Like I want things like this to be fun. Yeah.
But realizing that they've won the media game is also realizing that like whenever you're posting about like them being owned by someone or like showing something that you think has embarrassed them, they're actually not being embarrassed. You're actually publicizing them and their side doesn't see it as an embarrassment.
Oh, yeah. And like their side is watching them for hours a day. There's some new data coming out. I was reading in a newsletter this morning. Like maybe a third of Americans are still getting their news from the news. And the rest of folks, it's trickling down. They're getting it from YouTube, TikTok, and their friends. And so, like, we don't even
need
writers, shall we say?
They're their news jobs. So, like, who's reading the news or watching the news? Like, the people aren't even working there. So, you think we have big audience shares? YouTube, TikTok, all these things. I mean, it's just this insistence to, like, cling to old forms of media, even new forms of media that are old forms of media, specifically like how many people, even legacy journalists, right, are still on X, which is basically Elon Musk's like propaganda tool. It's you're not getting any of your message out. The rest of it outside of your bubble of, maybe gays or media you follow and thirst traps you see, like everyone else on X, like is getting the Republican talking points. Like how many times you just scroll through anything and you just see ads for Trump all day.
Exactly. Well, and then it'll be like these like resistance blue wave liberals still on Twitter posting shit like, and the 73 million people who voted for him are all racist. It's like, okay, you can say that, but what is it doing? Where's your message going? It's just, it means nothing. And I think like the reality that a lot of the left are going to have to face is that they have been shouting at walls for the last 2 or 3 years, thinking that it's like resonating. It's not.
And not even Tim Walz.
Hey!
Who didn't hear us. Yes.
I had this fight with someone the other day. They're like, well, we have to admit that it's 73 million Americans are racist and this and that and that. It's like, you can say that, but do you want to win? Do you want to win? Democrats and liberals have convinced themselves that they're right, and they just shout that over and over to each other. Meanwhile, the right is just trying to win elections.
Mm-hmm. And there's less infighting, etc. Realizing that like you may hate somebody, but I still need to sell these books.
There you go. A
racist can go buy my book on sale February 4th, 2025. Anyway.
Oh my God, Gail Weathers.
All right. Sam, I'm so excited for you to be here.
Sorry for that rant on politics, but I had to get it off my chest because just like...
No, also, we specifically kept this in the intro because we have things like Grammy nominations to discuss and real leaders like Nicole Scherzinger to get into.
Last week made me question this whole let everyone vote thing. But thankfully, we're approaching another race that's always been great to Black women.
Sorry, my organs jumped out of my body.
Of course, I'm talking about the Grammys, which just announced this year's nominees. The pop girls like Sabrina Carpenter and Chappell Roan and Charlie XCX scored big, while Ariana Grande, Dua Lipa, and others missed out. And of course, we're headed right into another Taylor Swift versus Beyonce matchup for Album of the Year.
Well, let me just say in general, though, the choices for Album of the Year and Record and Song, rarely do we get so much of the gay after party YouTube situation. Like we got a lot of Sabrina, a lot of Billie Eilish, a lot of Charlie XCX. Taylor, if you play her, not really my household, okay?
Yeah.
But Beyonce too. So in a way, it feels like this is Twitter's, if you will, Grammys.
Totally. Well, and, you know, I remember when the Sabrina Carpenter album came out, everyone was just like, this is bubblegum pop, Espresso's a bubblegum song, it's filler. And then we heard the album and we're like, this is really good pop music. To see the Recording Academy respect really good pop music, I like that. I think the nomination that I was most heartened by was Sabrina Carpenter's for Album of the Year, because it's not pretending to be anything else besides really fun, good pop music. She's like, here, take it. And the Academy was like, it's really good, girl. It's really good.
And there's an element of wit that really does elevate that album, too.
Oh,
and
yeah.
by the way,
lyrics
it's
are
pretty
great.
good start to finish, you know.
Yes.
And it's also a very varied album while remaining in this like cocoon of distinctly pop music, too. It's not pretentious in any way, but has a lot going on.
Yeah, and the wordplay is so smart. It is a smart pop album. And I think that the Academy of 10 years ago just would never take good pop that seriously. And they did this year, and I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Well, it also has to be said that the album is nominated, but, you know, it is also one of 2 Album of the Year nominations for Jack Antonoff. So I believe that the acceptance of the pop music is also just the Academy being like, well, this Jack again. Let's give him a nomination.
Perhaps. That said, I have to say, when Taylor Swift is nominated for Album of the Year, which, as you know, is every single year since 1967, a part of you has to wonder, are people just casually just going to vote yes again for it? She's won it 4 times, which is, you know, more than anybody. She has more than Stevie Wonder at this point.
Which is wild to
and
me.
It's very crazy.
Well, he can't
But,
see
like,
that anyway.
Okay, right.
Oh,
You comment?
my
Want to do a
God.
tight 5? Let me get you a longer mic.
Oh, my God.
But let me say about this album, if we're talking about sales, you might, and this is obviously an industry-oriented award, I'm worried she's going to win it again. I'm worried. And like then, of course, the placement of Cowboy Carter, which is an album that I think we all really like. It was more ambitious than we expected. A lot is going on that we love about that album, but maybe we like 15 of the 22 tracks. So I'm feeling like her standing is like making me a little nauseous right now.
Yeah, I don't feel like Beyonce is going to win Album of the Year for this one. And it's like Kamala's lack of being elected is reminding me never to trust voting bodies to respect the output of black women. But I also think it's like, if, you know, everyone's talking about, oh, Beyonce got 11 nominations for Cowboy Carter, the most for a single album ever. I don't mean nothing. She got 9 for Renaissance, and that was a better album, in my opinion. I think at this point, the Recording Academy likes to give Beyonce as many nominations as possible to distract you from the fact that they're never going to give her the big award. And this speaks to just the structural racism of that voting body. You know, it is still an academy composed of older white men who really think that black women and black music belong in their spot, which is, you know, usually not the main categories, not winning those. And so I don't have my hopes up at all. And I think that like the Academy honestly thinks at this point that they've done enough for Beyonce. They have
said that. They said that.
Yeah.
I think there was a last year, you know, when someone copied, you know, the brutally honest ballots that always come out for the Academy Awards. Someone did that for the Grammys. And I believe there was someone who said, you know, well, we've given her enough, you know, and she's nominated every year and it feels like it's supposed to be an event. And what we're supposed to just give it to her. And then they vote for Taylor Swift. And it's like, can you not say the same thing for her? Every album's in an event.
Really.
You hand it to her. And then this with the Eras tour and everything on top of it, it's, you know, it's like, that's for Billboard's up for, you know, the Grammy should represent a little something else. And personally, I would not give Album of the Year to Cowboy Carter. I would give it Country Album. I think that would be a good fuck you to the CMAs. And I think that the Grammys would like to do a fuck you to them anyway. I would honestly give it to Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish. I am still just like humming on that album, and Wildflower is still hooked in me. It's I think it's, you know, sort of her magnum opus.
It's so good. I think the album that wowed me the most this year was not Brat, but the Brat remix album. It's phenomenal.
I love that. The one with Japanese Tea House song. I love that. Yeah,
and it pushed the boundaries of what dance and pop can sound like. So it felt like the bravest of the year, but I just don't think Charlie XCX is big enough to win that big award. Bless her. I love her.
If I had to pick a winner in the album of the year category, I'm going to go Chappell Roan, and I'll say this about her. One, I feel like the Grammys love upstart singer-songwriter. They a lot of Best New Artist winners tend to be that, you know, from the Norah Joneses up. Just it goes back and back. Like look at the award. Carly Simon, it goes back and back. I feel like the Grammys love to be a part of a current moment that is also attached to the past. And I feel like her singer-songwriter instincts make Grammy voters who are old and I think probably mostly white feel like they aren't being left behind. And the example I always think of is when Lauryn Hill won Album of the Year. Yeah, that was new music. That was neo-soul and R&B, etc. But then the chorus of Doo Wop That Thing is a 60s girl group sounding song. So the Grammys feel like, oh, this is for me too, even though it's a new thing. And I feel like Chappell Roan represents that dichotomy best.
Well, and so much of Chappell Roan's album is giving you 80s new wave energy.
Yes. It's very throwback.
Nostalgic.
Yes.
Very throwback. You know, it's funny. I was thinking she was going to go crazy at this year's Grammys, but the last few weeks and months, she's kind of just been, no pun intended, a brat in public. And
fuck you for saying that. As she would say.
I know, but like she has not, like, this is the thing. It's like, which of these artists plays the game? Because it's all a game. In the same way that these actors have to campaign for months to get their Oscars, there's a certain campaigning that happens for the Grammys, and Taylor does that really well. Beyonce never does it, and it seems like Chappell right now is doing the opposite of campaigning. She's just like trying to be a brat. So I don't know how much that matters as well.
I will say though that this will, I mean, obviously the sales of the album continue to rise even amidst, you know, her alleged bad behavior this summer. And I will also say the nominations also confirm that people are still fans of Chappell. I really think her winning, you know, album of the year would also go a long way towards just shutting people up online, because the party line seems to be, she's ungrateful, you know, she like is not going to have a long career in the industry if she keeps acting like that, you know. But every time you talk to other artists in the industry, they're on her side. You listen to Stevie Nicks talking about her. She's like, her schedule was crazy. She needs a new team. And then she gets a new team, you know? And so I wonder if we know how artists feel, you know, like, you know, gilded, you know, in cages, sort of like they are appreciating her candor. And I wonder if the rest of the industry sort of feels that way, or if some of the older men in the industry are feeling the way that people are online, sort of like, well, she should stop talking, you know, like, just be quiet and be happy. So I think that whether or not she wins will go a long way towards telling us how she is perceived by the industry at large, like the people making the decisions.
Exactly. I also think that like the proof is in the pudding. She's an incredibly gifted songwriter. There are no skips on that album. She writes hooks that are larger than life. These songs are so good. Of all of the nominees for Best Album, I find Chappell Roan's songwriting to be the most, the sharpest. Those songs are sharp. Those hooks
at
are
least
sharp.
contrived too.
You.
Like she just is herself, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think she has a long career ahead of her. I think that like she makes music that appeals to people from like all generations, because this is pop that feels very modern, but it's harkening back to the 80s and it still works. So I'm not worried about her. And I think if she loses a bunch of Grammys, it just ups her mystique.
I also think the only time I've, like, you're just saying, Ira, like, how is all of this, how is all of her rancor registering with everybody? The only time I've taken a step back and like looked askance at her was when there was some article about how she switched management, and then she responded to the article you're losers for posting this or something. It's like, well, it is music news, and you're a huge artist. Like they're not losers for reporting the news.
Speaking of Chapel, she's also nominated for Best New Artist. And let's run these down and see who you are.
That's a curse. That award is a curse.
I know. Mark Cohn, we speak your name.
Yeah, that award is a curse.
Arrested Development.
Well, Benson Boone is nominated.
I still don't know what a Benson Boone is.
His
I
fine
couldn't
ass. Look
get
him
him in
up
the
on
lineup.
Instagram. Okay.
We used to drink
Okay.
Benson Boones in college. You could sneak them into your dorm.
That is a good-looking white man. Okay, let's just say that about. And he loves doing his backflips too. It's very, very like gymnast-oriented behavior, which I feel like you love, Louis.
Okay. All right. Speak my name. Fine.
Okay. Sabrina Carpenter is nominated. Drew Barrymore in Never Been Kissed is she should dress up like her at the awards ceremony because, girl, your 6th album.
This is her 6th album. Also, same for Khruangbin, who was nominated. Like I've been listening to Khruangbin for 10 years, and they're up for Best New Artist.
Oh yeah, well
I
this
don't
is not
read
new, of
Tolkien,
course.
so I don't know who that is.
Of course, Shelby Lynn won Best New Artist in I think 2001, and she was on her 13th album at the time. So it's this weird calculus they do about are you popular enough to even be noticed?
Yeah. Ray is nominated. This would be. I mean, I love Ray. Would it be a great
for a while
boon
too.
for her? Yes. And she might not be around for a minute because I don't know if you saw that news report that her car was broken into recently. As always happens with our pop girls, her car was broken into and her laptop was stolen with, like music for her new album on it. And
If they don't start storing this stuff in the cloud, put it in the cloud. Put it in the cloud.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Get it in a jewel case. My God, don't we own safes anymore?
Didn't this happen to someone else recently? I think
Lana
Kate
Del
Renata was like, I
Rey.
lost my album. Like, what is happening?
It happened to Lana too. It's happened to Charlie XCX. It happens to the girls. Shabuzi is nominated. He's had a big
still
year.
number one. He
still
is
number
still
one.
Number one. It's
That
like
song has been
17
number one for like
weeks.
17 weeks. It's insane. It also reminds me and makes me know that like that Billboard Hot 100, it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore.
It is very like.
I'm sorry.
I
People
think
are
the old
listening to it.
And because they put it on for their toddlers in the back seat. It's Kids Bop.
I think the old math for Billboard was also insane, and not that I trust this anymore. But you're right. I don't look at the chart anymore and think, "Oh, this is representative of what quote unquote we are all listening to."
We need TRL
I knew
back.
it didn't work. We really do.
That was the
I
truth.
knew this chart didn't work. I was in Texas with good friends and their 5-year-old kid, and we're driving somewhere to do something, and they just played Shabuzi's A Bar Song Tipsy for like 10 times as we drove. And they're like, oh, the kid likes it. That's why that song is number one. This has become a Kids Bop hit. Like, that's what that song is.
Maybe there is something to be said, not at this time, but, I'm just ruminating, about Black men experimenting in country music and it becoming very popular on the charts, but then also doubling as Kids Bop music for, white parents to let their kids just play aimlessly.
Remember Nelly? Remember when Nelly was doing country?
Well, I'm talking specifically about Old Town Road.
Right.
Oh, that was a Kids Bop song.
Yeah.
That was a Kids Bop song.
And it's we found a new way to placate America with the image of Black men by sticking them in a cowboy hat and some boots and,
Magical country
rhyming.
Negroes.
You think Shabuzi is Shababy Shark?
Well,
Okay.
if we should start, should we start covering country on this podcast more? I mean, there's been a lot of talk post-election about getting people on the right to listen, and if we just cover country music, I'm all for it.
I can do Casey Musgraves. I'm trying to think of who else. I can do a little Miranda Lambert.
I listen to Post album. I you know what? Also, I have I love his song with Morgan Wallen. Okay, and
It's fun.
Yeah,
You need some help. Not you had some help, motherfucker.
You know what? I would shake Morgan Wallen's hand if I saw him in public.
Oh, that's not an option. That's not how people really
You
greet each
shake
other.
the
but
man,
okay.
shake the man's hand, Daddy, and be on your way. I would shake his hand. Okay,
Why not? Yeah. Which
the
of
way-
these nominations most surprised y'all?
Well, I'll say that Best Pop Solo Performance is the best category. And I never think it usually boils down to that being the most interesting part of an award ceremony. So Beyonce, Bodyguard, Sabrina Carpenter, Espresso, Charlie XCX, Apple, Billie Eilish, Birds of a Feather, and Chappell Roan, Good Luck, Babe. I mean, that's a 5-way argument. That's like an Oscars race I would be excited to follow all season. I think I would pick Espresso by Sabrina since it's the most sort of like
Just
takeover
dominant.
pop moment of them all and like the definitive summer song. But I don't think she has it in the bag.
No, I just want to rant and say that, like, if Beyonce had just made some videos, Bodyguard is the best Beyonce single in years. It's such a great song. Had she made a video for that, had she made a video for, Two Most Wanted, it's like, girl, you
Yeah.
could have run up and down these charts all year.
She's a
But
nasty
she just
woman.
doesn't do it anymore. She really is.
She's a
Like,
nasty
Bodyguard is so
woman.
good and no visual. Then you give me that fake visual the day before the election. Remember that little video she
Yes.
posted? Ugh.
Yeah, with her being Pamela Anderson from
Yes.
Barbed Wire. Meanwhile, I was just side note to that. Like she posted, there was a clip posted of the Barbed Wire scene where, Pamela shoots someone and she shoot them 9 times. And then there was the Prince that she also went as for Halloween, recreating the 1999 cover. And then she also rudely went as Pamela Anderson at the 999, No Visual Awards.
I know. Just come on now.
I don't appreciate her, making us get into numerology like the Swifties because 9, of course, Act 3 will be her 9th studio album. And I'm like, if you're not even giving me videos, I'm not playing games with you. Okay.
Right.
Like I'm not solving your riddles.
Yeah, don't give us a Sudoku. I have nothing left to solve with you.
If you want to talk about, surprises, I was shocked, pleasantly shocked at Best Dance Pop Recording, a nomination for Madison Beer's Make You Mine. Because that
which we
song
do
is
love.
a banger.
Yes.
Okay.
And Troye Sivan
Madison
got a
Beer.
nomination too.
Good
And he
for
lost
Troy.
to Kylie Minogue last year like a good gay man. That's how it works.
You know?
You'll do it again when we ask.
Some people are like mad that Ariana Grande didn't get more nominations, but I kind of feel like Ariana didn't care about that album either. She just
I
put it out
love
and was
that
like,
album.
okay. I like it too, but she was just like, okay, there you go. See ya. She wasn't really
honestly-
worried about it.
Honestly, as we'll get into with our movie discussion, it feels like this is a light year for movies. Like, not a lot is coming out that is terribly prestigious. I think she has a chance with Wicked. I think people are really
I'm
responding to
hearing
her,
that
so
there's
maybe
some
she'll make
Oscar
up for
buzz
it there.
her. Yeah,
You
and
know?
I also feel like her energy is moving into that world, which fine, because don't forget, she's a Disney girl. She knows how to like read some lines.
Well, she's not in danger of losing to Selena Gomez, I'll tell you that. But we'll get to Amelia Perez later.
Yeah. I will say for Amelia Perez, they did finally unwire Selena's jaw, which is wired shut for Only Murders. She talks through like the smallest crack in her mouth for Only Murders. And at least in Amelia Perez.
Only murmurs in the building is the joke you were looking for. We've now said it.
Okay, there we go. Whereas at least in Amelia, her mouth is open.
I think that obviously record of the year is going to have to be Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. When you talk about a song that has sort of taken over the year and been on the charts, that is a song that everyone listens to. I don't think he might get that one, but I think he's going to get best at least hip hop song.
Oh, yeah. The thing about that song is like you love it, you're rocking with it, and then you realize at a certain point all the kids who like this song scream certified pedophile. And that's weird. It's still weird for me. Whenever I see the videos of the kids doing that, I'm like, this is strange. And I can't see Academy voters saying this is the song of the year. I can't see
It's just the new Stranger Danger.
Do you think this could be incorporated into the DARE program? This is their version of Kids Bop. It's the new DARE
There you
program.
go. Yeah, yeah.
But by the way, the Beatles being nominated in here for that like assisted song, that is like the shittiest nomination in 5 years. Ain't nobody listening to that song, and they do not need to be nominated for Record of the Year for that.
They snuck that in after Quincy
agree.
died. I saw that.
Yeah.
Because Quincy Jones would have hopped up on the mic and said, fuck the Beatles.
Yeah. Oh, not Ringo's work. Anyone but.
That's a lazy sort of nomination, and also would not be shocked if it won.
I'm looking at these. I think Record of the Year is much likelier to be someone like Chappell Roan.
I think Chapel could do well in Record of the Year and Song of the Year. Album of the Year is still a big old toss-up, but I think for a lot of Academy voters, Recording Academy voters, Chapel, like you're saying, Lewis, allows them to feel like they're supporting something current, but also still allows them to feel as if they're supporting a classic singer-songwriter.
Obviously, a couple years ago when Billie Eilish won for her When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? That was one of the few times where I think she was so huge and so new and not old in any way that voters just said, if we don't vote for this, we're going to seem out of touch. So I kind of like that self-consciousness about them. In that case, there's a chance they can dial into Brat as a one-word phenomenon that did sort of catch on. But I feel like they respect Chapel a little bit more.
They do. I also feel like Charlie XCX is like one of those whistles that only people under a certain age can hear. I do not think that the older men in the Academy get it at
You are
all.
totally right. I can't picture them listening to it at all.
Whereas Chapel, they're like, oh, I get this. But they don't get
Right.
Brat. They don't get Brat.
But I definitely believe Charlotte will play the game and be, at all of the sip and sees.
Oh, listen.
She loves a photo op.
is there. She loves it. She's going to show up.
One thing I want to say about Cowboy Carter, though, is I love that, the album, as we described, an Americana album, we discussed it, and she got Best Americana Performance with Yaya. I love that there's so many different categories of things that she's nominated for with this album. That's, I think, one of the boons that comes out of this, whether or not she wins or not. It also introduced me to, I love when they split up categories, because like Best Melodic Rap Performance is Spaghetti is
Which
nominated
one is
for.
that?
What does that mean? Spaghetti is alongside
melodic rap, the Nelly category. What the hell? Melodic rap.
Well, that's 3 a.m. Rhapsody featuring Erykah Badu, Big Mama by Lotto, We Still Don't Trust You featuring Metro Boomin, and Kalani by Jordan Adetunji featuring Kalani. Melodic rap.
Who knew?
Who knew?
I thought that was Prodigy,
I also
Or the
think
Madonna
that, like,
American Life album.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I also think that like the phenomenon of Cowboy Carter getting so many nominations in so many different categories speaks to why I didn't feel as strongly about this album as I did Renaissance. Renaissance felt so much more cohesive and of a singular vision. It was an hour-long DJ dance set, and it was just making you move. And Cowboy Carter felt like it was always pulling me in 5 directions at once and kind of exhausting me. I would do this thing where I try to play the whole thing, and by the time I got to Yaya, I'd be like tired. I'd be tired. Whereas when I would listen to Renaissance, I would end that hour of Renaissance invigorated. It's like Beyonce can throw everything at the kitchen sink or whatever the phrase is and do it well. But with this album, I found it overwhelming and like scattered, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would describe it as jerky. Like, because some of the
Yes.
songs are short,
Yes.
too. So when
And
you
you're
get
like,
like
boom,
this
boom, boom,
taste
boom.
of one style and then move on to another one quickly, it didn't feel, well, one, cohesive, but like no momentum was building, really. It
Exactly.
just wanted to
But-
give you a piece of everything, which is good when it comes to the Grammys, because obviously there's plenty of ways they can reward these individual tracks. But as a listening experience, it is a bit much.
Jerky, just like a roller coaster.
Yes. Whereas I felt like Renaissance was a perfectly executed singular vision, which is why I think it more deserves Album of the Year.
Hey, can we just give it to that? Can we give Renaissance
Give
album
it to
of the year
Renaissance.
again?
Give it to
Yeah.
Renaissance.
Because
Yes.
honestly,
I'm still throwing rocks at Harry's house, by the way. I'm still outside.
Also, can we just talk about how Eminem once again is up for Best Rap Album? That man will never go away.
And he's looking very kind of claymation at the moment with like dark black hair.
Oh,
he's morphing
everyone
into
says that
Mariah
he's on
Carey.
Grinder.
Is he?
Yes.
I don't think he is. I think that's a rumor. Allegedly, he could be on it, to quote from Star Jones, but I don't believe it. I don't see that man as gay.
No. He's not gay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would know.
He's not for
Okay,
me.
yeah.
He's not
My
for me.
sister. Anyway, is there any lasting thoughts that we have on the Grammys?
You know, I am actually excited about the Best Alternative Music Album category because it has
Clairo?
two of my faves of this year, Clairo and Brittany Howard. That Brittany Howard album was quite good. So yeah, all the folks that I think should get some shine, they got some shine. I don't know who's gonna win big, but like I feel good that the folks who were honored, and folks who were like, oh well, Dua Lipa got no nominations. Fine. That album was bad.
You know what?
It's
Keep my girl's
okay.
name out of your mouth. Keep her. Okay.
You like that album?
I loved it.
I like one song on it.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay.
Baby, there's a lot of strokes on that album, okay? You know, it's just like it's for grooving at home, you know, for adults doing adult things.
Oh, okay.
It's clean the house music. It's clean the house music.
She wasn't exactly giving Aaliyah. Okay.
If the votes are rocking, you're listening to future. You're listening to. Yeah, I can't even remember the name of the album.
Yeah, you can't even remember. I was like, tell me the name of the album. Yeah.
Radical Optimism. There we go. The extended version, which is better.